think it's incredibly rare and somewhat interesting for a genre of music to capture the internet's attention in a way that lo-fi hip-hop has these past few years. There's something unique about it, whether it's the places it draws its influence from or the type of nostalgia it's trying to evoke. There's a certain quality to it that struck a chord with a lot of people. I remember when I first found lo-fi hip-hop on September 18th of 2016. It was on an EP called Rainy Evening by an artist called Idealism. It's only 12 minutes in length, but I can confidently say it's one of my favorite pieces of music of all time. It had this unique, dreary, but upliftingly beautiful quality to it that at the time I'd heard nowhere else. And judging by the comments on this video, I wasn't alone either. What I think makes lo-fi hip-hop so appealing is that it plays off a strand of nostalgia that's only just starting to emerge within its main audience. And what I mean by this is that the music has these underlying qualities. Whether it be the low hiss of a cassette tape or the quickly produced backing beats, there's something there that resonates with a large portion of its audience. It's the kind of music you'd expect to hear on Adult Swim in the early 2000s. For example. Now compare that to an Adult Swim bump from 11 years ago. It appeals to those who grew up listening to 90s hip-hop, but it's not a straight-up reflection of that music. It's warped and changed to reflect the culture it's grown in. But nevertheless, its influence is still shown prominently through the often frequent sampling of artists like Biggie Smalls, Dr. Dre, and in some cases modern artists. But this subgenre of chilled-out hip-hop has been around for years, most notably with the work of Nujabes, who sadly passed away in 2010. But fortunately, his legacy and influence is seen vividly in some of the most well-respected artists in the genre today, such as Ginsang, Tompa Beats, Evie, and to some extent even Joji. And in my eyes, what's made it so popular in today's internet-based culture is a series of perfectly timed clashes of interest and a shared love of a relatively underground but universally appreciated feeling of nostalgia. The Millennial generation is the first to live in an age where music can be created and shared with the world instantly. And I think this hyper-connected world, coupled with the need for a chilled-out alternative to ambient music, has led it to find a niche and over time a more mainstream appeal. I've seen no other recent genre even come close to how wide of an appeal lo-fi hip-hop has in terms of when and how you can enjoy it. For example, the song Getting Through by Dreams West is a perfect example. This song fits well whether you're sitting on a couch doing nothing or studying intensely for an exam you have the next day. And that is, I think, because it takes a very present genre of music, hip-hop, and tones various elements of it down so that it can be enjoyed in a more relaxed environment without taking away its attention-grabbing undertones. It's the type of music that isn't distracting in the slightest, but is still thoroughly enjoyable once you pay attention to it. And much like electro swing that came before it, lo-fi hip-hop's been incredibly influenced by internet culture, particularly by fans of anime. Over the past year or so, I've seen the genre's Eastern influence transform the genre's overarching aesthetic into something that's extremely different but faithful to its origins. I think the music producer Mark Ronson said it perfectly when he said,
"You can't just sort of hijack nostalgia wholesale. There has to be, it leaves the listener feeling sickly. You have to take an element of those things and then bring something fresh and new to it."
And while the core style of the genre remains the same, you have channels like 1171 Domino that excellently push the genre into a much wider audience with these beautifully crafted edits. These things act as semi-music videos for the music and subsequently give it a much wider appeal. These videos are extremely reminiscent of the AMVs you saw all over YouTube in the late 2000s. This popularity, in turn, attracts a multitude of artists all looking to add their own spin on the genre. Which brings me on to the point. The whole idea of lo-fi hip-hop isn't to spend days and weeks perfecting a beat. It's about having a raw idea that you'd like to express musically, whether it be one rooted in sadness or joy, and dropping it onto the web for everyone to enjoy. There's beauty in its simplicity, and its accessibility has led it to become one of the fastest growing and most inclusive music subcultures on the net. Lo-fi hip-hop both celebrates and romanticizes the past in a way that a much more recent audience can relate to, but it remains empty enough for those who can't connect with its aesthetics to give it their own meaning. In my eyes, the most important generation for this genre has been the Millennial generation. It's this generation that I believe is connected deeply with the genre and contributes the most in terms of influence. And although I've tried to establish this point, I think it's important to understand that it would be foolish to suggest that you have to have this deep connection with the genre to enjoy it. But I think recognizing the reason for its popularity is important. It's a scene that's been birthed by nostalgia, but it's also been influenced by it. It's a scene that celebrates itself. It's an ode to millennial nostalgia.